Well, good afternoon, Bob.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
I'm doing great. We just finished our October hymn sing.
It was an amazing morning.
Yeah, we had 148 people with us, and we were back in sitting at tables, which was kind of fun. And it was good to have Diane Susek with us.
Always good to. Always, do I have to do this?
Yeah, you have to do that. It
Sorry.
would be nice so that people could hear.
Always good to be with you as well. I feel like I'm like a thorn between two roses or something.
So I keep reminding myself.
You are the cream between the Oreo cookie.
Oh,
wow. You know what? And I like the double stuff.
Yeah. Well,
all right, or triple or whatever.
If
Mega.
you want to be double stuff, it'll
yeah.
be
Well,
up to
when
you.
it comes to them,
So I keep thinking about this. I know that you get mad when I think about this, but like I was 16 the first
oh, for heaven's sake!
time I met you. I was on the staff at Sandy Cove in the Choraleers, and you
Okay.
and Ron.
Yeah.
Ron was the speaker for the week, and you were the musician.
Yes.
So if I was
You
16,
was 16. Well, now let me tell you.
That
you
was
know
almost
that I
50
married
years ago.
young. Yeah. So I'm not that far ahead of you. Just so you know.
that's true. I'm
Yeah.
66.
See, I'm not that far ahead of you. I'm only. Gee, I kind of forget at the moment. But anyway.
Well, last summer, we
66.
celebrated your 50th year in
really amazing.
music ministry.
Yeah.
And we had a really
yeah.
good time. In fact, you can go on our website and watch it was just a really, really cool afternoon.
Well, without bronchitis, it would have been even better.
That's true.
You know,
But it still was a
anyway,
lot of fun.
The show must go on, I guess.
So you grew up in a musical family.
I really did. you know.
Let's talk a little bit about your amazing mom and dad and the influence that they had musically in your life.
Yeah, well, you know, from day one, we were hearing music, and not not once a week or something, every day. And my dad often sat down at the grand piano in our living room and began. It was his mother's grand piano, and would begin to play, and he'd play before dinner and after dinner and whatever. But we grew up surrounded by sound, by musical sounds. And of course, they were both very intent, my mom having been a singer and in a ladies' trio and did some solo work. She went up to Western Canada to do some solo work, and my dad was the accompanist, so that's how they met in a radio station. But I don't think they had TV then. Well, I don't know, I get mixed up. But anyway, I know they didn't have the internet. But anyway, so that's how they met and began collaborating, way back, musically speaking. And so, we were surrounded by it. My dad wanted Buddy and me both to have piano lessons, so he began to teach us piano. And his instruments were piano, my dad, and cello. And so he had studied at Toronto Conservatory when they came from England to Canada. So, we really, and my mom a singer, so I kind of took that avenue, although he had me take up violin because he always felt stringed instruments help they tune your ear, And so he felt that was important.
And you listened to a variety of styles of music?
We really did, and of course my dad being a classical musician, we heard a lot of that and loved it. And then he, after becoming a believer as a boy, then and after his classical studies, he began arranging for piano solos, sacred music and so forth. So then that really is what took us, where we were concentrated very much on that. Although my dad always felt that, having your classical degree was a good thing, and it wasn't. It didn't limit you to just classical music, but it gave you a base from which to do everything else. And I found out that's true.
And your dad had an amazing ear, and he also was a wordsmith.
He was a wordsmith. I'll tell you, we were just talking about this the other day. He had all these words that started with the V that meant kind of the same thing, like venomous and vituperative and vindictive. And so we always had these contests, with
That's how
many
you
words.
practiced your diction.
Absolutely. And my mom was right there to say, I didn't hear the T on the end of that word that you just sang. So, people have got to understand what you're saying. If they don't
Especially in a
understand-
room like this.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
he also was a journaler.
My dad kept a diary all of his life, and I have his diaries from 1935. So it's been really fun to just once in a while, not as often as I wish, get into those and just. They always started the same way. The weather was up there at the top, and then the first thing was what time he got up, and then the first thing was in the Word and prayer, and then the day went on from there with some incidental things as well as some, important things too, but every single day. So it's been really fun to have
And
that.
towards the end of his life, he was not doing the journaling. If I remember the story, Queenie was sort of the secretary. Wasn't she dictating to her what she needed to write?
He did to some degree. She took it down. Yeah, my dad's eyesight got kind of bad. So she wrote, she did what she could too. And he kept all of this stuff, and he used to clip the newspaper all the time. So if there were headlines that were important, and he had scrapbooks. And I just looked the other day at a scrapbook that has the end of World War II in it, huge headlines on the paper and things like that. They're getting a little bit flaky now, but quite interesting, although my mom always teased him and said now when he went to heaven that we were going to have a big bonfire with all of these things because they were starting to overrun every place, all of his things.
So many memories, so many
Yeah.
stories, but I remember your mom had a story connected with the song, No One Ever Cared for Me Like Jesus.
Yeah, she did. My mom and dad were ministering ministers of music in a church in why can't I say it? It starts with a C, outside of Chicago, and I can't say it right now. But anyway, they were the ministers of music, and one of the things they did was they went to the jail, one of the jails in the area, and held services in the jail. And so, why can't I think of the name of that town where they were? Well,
It's called Age.
I know, it is called Age.
I have
and
that
it was
same
at the
thing.
such and such Bible church. I'm sorry, I know what it is. Cicero, the Cicero Bible Church. And so they would go as a church, and sometimes just mom and dad would go, and they would sing and play, a little kind of unfolded organ sort of thing. And my dad would give a testimonial or a scripture or a little message from that. My mom would share her testimony. So they, one Sunday afternoon, it had been all over the papers the year or two before that a young man who had decided to rob a bank, I think it was a jewelry store, never intended to hurt anybody, but in the act of robbing the bank, there were guns, and he shot a man, and was convicted of first-degree murder, and was on death row in Chicago, at the Cook County Jail. And so they knew about this. They were sort of following his story a bit in the papers, and I think actually were maybe praying that his life would be spared. They wanted him to know Jesus, of course. And so my mom got up and in this service, and she began to sing one of her songs, which was No One Ever Cared for Me Like Jesus. I'd love to tell you what I think of Jesus, And as they got through into the second verse, she discovered she was hearing someone sing. There was a room full of inmates, and she didn't see anybody singing there, but she looked beyond to another area where there were more bars and more bars. And she saw a man standing there, and he was mouthing these words with her. No one ever cared for me like Jesus. There's no other friend so kind as he, And she recognized him as the man who was about to die for his crime. And they were granted a few words with him, not Certainly not one-on-one. There was social distancing, as we know of now. But I mean, they were between, bars. But they had an opportunity to talk with him. And my mom said, I heard, did I hear you singing? I could, absolutely. And he had come to Christ.
Wow.
And he knew that song. And so they had this wonderful meeting with him. And they prayed with him. And when they turned and left, they turned around to wave at him, and he went, I'll see you. I'll see you up there. So they were so moved by it, they went home and watched the newspaper the next morning, kind of praying that maybe there would be a reprieve, not that he knew he had to serve, had to pay for his crime, and he told them that. But but sure enough, he went to heaven that night. And it's just a story that has been burned into my heart, and my mind for all of these years, what that meant. I mean, he ministered to them, really. And a testimony of God's grace. I mean, I hear people say this, and maybe you have too if you're listening. Well, that guy killed someone. He'll burn in hell. He'll burn in hell for doing that. And people have said it to me, and I've said, if he is separated from God for eternity, it's not because he murdered someone. It's because he rejected God. He rejected Jesus' death on the cross. That's what will separate him, not the murder. Certainly the murder, is a heinous thing. But God's forgiveness extends way beyond murder, way beyond. And so they know we'll see him there. We'll see him there. Ernest,
Why don't you
wish
sing
on.
that song for
What?
us? No one ever cared for
Oh,
me.
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be fun for our guests.
Oh, where's everyone going?
Well, unless you're doing it a cappella, we were going to play
Oh,
for
no,
you.
no, that's okay. Organ and piano. These guys are really terrific. These guys are really terrific. I just can't tell you what a joy it is always to be with them, because they can play anything and they're fun. And once in a while they make fun of me, and that's okay too. And they call me old, and I am. But it's always a joy to be here and be with them. I would love to tell you what I think of Jesus, how I found in him a friend so kind and true. I would tell you how he changed my life completely. He did something that no other friend could do. No one ever cared for me like Jesus. No one else has been so kind as he. No one else could take my sin and darkness from me. Oh, how much he cares for me. Another verse. Every day he comes to me with new assurance. More and more I understand his words of love. But I'll never know just why he came to save me until the day I see him and see his face above. No one ever cared for me like Jesus. No one else has been so kind my darkness from me. Oh, how much he cares for me. Oh, how much he cares for This is kind of off the cuff stuff, isn't it here?
It's fun, though.
But you knew what I was going to do, I
Well,
guess. You know,
that,
and I'm thinking,
there was
wow,
a project that you did that was just piano, which was one of my favorite ones.
Oh,
You
okay,
played- you
yeah,
did
with Ted Cornell. Yeah, Ted Cornell was a member of the Billy Graham organization, the team, and played piano for them for many, many, many years, and just an excellent Juilliard grad, of course, in piano.
While you're talking about Billy Graham, your family sort of has a interesting connection with.
Well, we do sort of. My mom left York, Pennsylvania to study at Florida Bible Institute. And when she arrived there, she met a very dashing, outgoing guy named Billy Graham. And so they became well acquainted and began to date and spent a lot of time together dating for a number of years. And so that's kind of our connection, I guess you might say, a little bit. And
The picture, we have a picture.
Oh,
of
you
Queen.
do?
Well, it's not right. There it is. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. That's Mama, and that's Dr. Graham. He's a cutie pie, you know.
Well, your brother
Nice and
sort of had
tall.
a funny comment about this whole connection with
He did.
with the Grahams. Wasn't it, Buddy?
Was it Buddy?
Or was it Ron?
Well, I don't know if I
About
remember.
taking the offering.
Oh no, that was my mother's brother.
Okay.
My mother's wonderful brother Jim served in World War II and just a great guy and very funny. And so he and his girlfriend are walking down the street in York, Pennsylvania, and there is a car sitting in front of their parents' home. And my aunt said, "Whose car is that?" And my Uncle Jim said, "Oh, it belongs to some guy named Billy Graham who's in there visiting with Mom and Dad. He loves my sister." So so later then, of course, when they sort of went their separate ways, my Uncle Jim said, now if my sister had played her cards right, I'd be in the back room counting the offering right now.
Amazing.
Which is terrible. But, you know, all in good fun, of course, of course. There's nobody more circumspect than Dr. Billy Graham. So anyway, then, you know, through the years then, he had their trio, which traveled with Billy, or Dr. Graham, I should say, with him in early meetings in the South. Many, many, many weeks of meetings, and the trio would sing, and Billy would speak, and my mom would do solos and so forth. So he had them back to 2 crusades. A crusade in Houston and one in Denver, and flew them all in from different parts of the country, and they sang at several of the big crusade meetings, and it was just a marvelous time. They just took such good care of them, and it was just he was always in touch with his past, it seemed to me. He was that kind of a person, and didn't forget. So then I went on, you know, grew up and was singing at a National Religious Broadcasters Convention or something, and someone didn't show up to sing, so they said, well, you need to do this slot too. So I said, okay. And so we walked into this big room, and there was a platform, and there were people seated at it, and I was seated up there. My dad was going to play for me, and so several seats down was Dr. Graham. And so we greeted each other because we had met before, and he knew I was Queenie's daughter. So I finished my song, and then before he started his message, he said, "I want you guys to know that's the daughter of my old girlfriend." So for a few fleeting moments, I was really popular after that meeting was over, because people found that so interesting. So and then he had me to sing in Crusade. So you know, he's a wonderful man. We just feel so blessed, as does the world, you know, for the difference he's made so many lives. What a model.
Diane, you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of amazing people. One of them is a hero of mine that I have never met. And I grew up in Montrose, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And John W. Peterson lived in Montrose for quite a while. And I never got to meet him. But he was on the board at the Bible conference. He was involved with the radio station and Singspiration with Al Smith.
Yes,
But
indeed.
tell us a little bit about.
Well, when I was studying at Peabody Conservatory in Baltimore, I was in I think my third year maybe. I got a call, and I'd already been doing some singing. Ron and I had been traveling in meetings. We were already married when I finished my music degree. And I got a call from the Grand Rapids School of the Bible and Music, and asked to do some solo work for a cantata of John Peterson's, which was No Greater Love. So it was an Easter cantata. And would I come to Grand Rapids and be part of this, do the solo stuff? And I said, well, I'd be honored, of course. So I went, and so we took that to Grand Rapids, to a large auditorium there, Philadelphia, to the Convention Hall in Philadelphia, to Boca Raton, Florida, at Bibletown, which was a wonderful auditorium and a big stage. And so it was all staged. I mean, there were actors. We were all in costume. And John W. Peterson had the baton, and he led the orchestra. And what a great guy. What a humble man, and just very tall, and a great musician. I just enjoyed his presence so much. He's a fine, fine person. So I felt very honored to have done that, and had that privilege to get to know him. And we collaborated, over the music in that cantata. So it was a wonderful experience for me.
How do you pick a favorite John Peterson song? There's so many wonderful ones.
Yeah, I always loved, and he told me this story himself, Over the Sunset Mountains. And he was a fighter, he was a pilot in the war. And I don't know just where it was, I just remember him saying that coming up over a rise of mountains was the sun coming up in the morning, and he was in the plane, flying the plane, and that song came to mind, that thought came to mind, Over the Sunset Mountains, and where he was going to go one day. Wow. So that was an interesting story. But yeah, he's written, there are just too many to count. I think I've sung most of them at one time or another in my life. We grew up with the favorites and Singspiration books in our church, and all of his cantatas we did. Buddy was part of those, and my dad and mom were part of them. And in fact, at Christmas time, Buddy and I and my mom and dad would go around the piano. Dad would play, and we'd go through an entire John Peterson cantata. Of course, Dad was bass, and Mom sang the alto, and Buddy the tenor, and I sang the soprano. We went through the whole thing. We just loved those cantatas. So.
Well, let's do one of John's songs. I'm having a real difficult time choosing, because originally I wanted you to do What Grace Is This, but I think my all-time favorite is Jesus Loved Me All the Way.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Mine too. Now, am I doing more than one verse? Because
Yes.
I'm trying to think. Do I remember that?
If God Should Let Me There.
Yeah,
Redeem.
so you might have to, if God should let me there, I usually sing another verse, but I love this song. Someday life's journey will be o'er, and I shall reach that distant shore. I'll sing while entering heaven's door. Jesus led me all the way. Jesus led me all the way. Led me step by step each day. I will tell the saints and angels as I lay my burdens down. Jesus led me all the way. If God should let me there review the winding paths of Jesus led me all the way. He led me step by step each day. I will tell the saints and angels as I lay my burden down. Jesus led me all the way. Jesus led me all the way. He wrote such practical songs. I mean, is that absolutely not true? You know,
And the words are timeless.
they're timeless.
Every time I hear some of them, the words jump off the page. He just
Exactly.
was so gifted in not only writing great music, but putting lyrics that just.
Fantastic. To be able to do both is really a wonderful talent. It truly is. And you can look at just like the scriptures. It will mean something different to you, depending on where you are in your life, right? I mean, you can read a passage that you've read hundreds of times, and all of a sudden it pops out at you, and it means something. It takes on a meaning for the place where you find yourself right now, and that's exactly what his songs do.
I often think that I was born about 12 years too late.
Too late, yeah. Well, I can't say that, but maybe you can. But I know you can. No, I understand what you're saying.
Well,
I
Al
really
Smith
do.
was also in Montrose, and I grew up with his second set of kids, and had an opportunity to play for him a few times, but love that music.
And what, you know, my heart is stirred whenever I think of Jesus. I sang, did a concert, I used to do a bunch of them at Word of Life, and some in Scroon Lake, some in Florida. And so one night down there during one of the concerts, I discovered he was sitting in the audience in his wheelchair. And so I got Harry Ball back and said, come up here and get at the piano. So he came and got at the piano, and I walked back the aisle with my roving mic, and we sang a duet.
A
Al
voice
Smith
like
and I.
butter.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
He used to call
Unbelievable.
me his fat little friend.
His fat little friend?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, I'm not sure why.
Wow.
Well, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
It could have been worse, right?
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, great men who, you know, who's had a heart for God, obviously, and just their music, just can you think where it's gone and who it has, you know, has impressed and who has been, you know, come to Christ through it and all of those things, you know. Music has this little arrow that goes right into the soul, you know. And
It should, correct?
It should, and
And
that's where it should go. Yeah.
With that in mind, church music has really taken a different direction
It has.
in the last 15 years.
And I have to say, I am so pleased with some of the things I'm hearing today that people are writing. You know, there are some good writers writing sacred music today, and I love it so very much. I hate to say but here, but I'm going to say but. I think about the songs that we cut our teeth on, the hymns of the faith and gospel songs, that John Peterson and Al Smith and many, many others. And I learned a lot of doctrine from those songs. I learned a lot of stories about how they wrote this, what experience they went through. Look at It Is Well With My Soul. Look at Spafford losing his 4 daughters and being able to say, Thou hast taught me to say, it's well with my soul. It's not easy to learn that. And so I have to say, I feel like I've had this rich upbringing of, and I include in that some of the classics, because my discovery when I went to Peabody Conservatory was some of the most beautiful music ever written has words that come from the Holy Bible, right from the God's mouth, you know. And it was with a real special purpose to be able to sing those things to my peers and say, this is a message. There's a message here. Oh, divine Redeemer,
Yep.
you know, etc. So yeah, music has come a long way, hasn't it? It's changed a lot in some ways, but I have a great heart for the gospel songs and the hymns of the faith.
One of
My
the
heart's
things
there.
that we talk about often is I don't have a problem with music being written today,
Right.
but a lot of it is not singable by the congregation.
It's true. That's
So
true.
in my thinking, it tends to cause it to be more of a performance than a participatory event.
Yeah, well, it's a good point, and I think you're right about that. And sometimes if it's in the right key for the worship leader, everybody else is kind of, wondering where to go, down an octave or up an octave or whatever. But I understand what you're saying.
Well, next week we're going to interview Buddy, your
Are
brother.
you really?
And I know he's
Okay.
got some interesting concepts. on
Well, you ought to
worship,
give me
so-
an opportunity to tell him what to say. I usually try to tell him what to say.
So you've done everything from Broadway to classical to sacred music, and one of the things that I think resonates with people is when you sing, you do it in such a way which it really speaks to hearts and touches people's hearts.
There isn't
Nobody-
anything nicer you could say to me. I mean, it's nice to, it used to be nice to hear, that was a great high C, or whatever. But actually, when you're in the Lord's work and when you're singing for Him, the best thing that you could hear is that, yeah, I got this message.
Well, you
I got
make the
this
lyrics
message.
come alive.
Well,
when
thank you.
sing.
They're
So-
important. My mom used to say, if we can't understand, you didn't put a T on the end of that word, the end of that chorus. If we can't understand the words, what's the point?
It's interesting that you say, but earlier you spoke about learning classical music. And I've often said, if you learn to play classical music, you can play anything.
I totally agree.
But what you bring to music is a higher level of performance from the standpoint of it's very well trained, the diction is excellent, but what supersedes that is the heart that burns through those abilities and talents that you've developed. And,
Wow.
and when you talk about something that might be lacking in church music today, it's the lack of training.
Right.
And it's a sad commentary.
My dad was and my mom, very insistent, that I be the best you can be, be the best, and let the Lord then, let Him take that and give His message through it, and that was very important to my father, and I'm happy about that because those were some wonderful days at that Conservatory of Music. I knew I was in the minority when it came to being a born-again Christian. But what opportunities. One of my other friends there who had the same voice teacher I had came to Christ in one of our meetings. And, there are just some wonderful, wonderful things that I recall. And my voice teacher, who was from Austria and went through, the takeover there of that country and so forth, she ate and slept and breathed and ate. I said ate already, didn't I? Yeah. Music. That just consumed her soul and her body. And I've thought to myself, I want to be like that. I want that to be true, particularly when I'm singing about my relationship with the Lord or about His attributes. Doesn't have to be about me necessarily, but just to think that I get to commune with this awesome God of the universe, and that He cares enough about me to talk back to me, So I learned many, many wonderful things that I took into ministry all these years with Ron and
So
in
if
concerts.
you were talking to a young teenager today that loves to sing, what would you tell them?
Well, first and foremost, I would tell them to get some training, because I think you can run into the problem where you get so trained that you take the soul out of it, and of course that can be dangerous. But you need the fundamentals, and Buddy and I we had the gift. I mean, we could sing from the time we were tiny, but to hone it and make it the best it can be is what really matters. And that might even mean singing a song you don't like. I'm not into art songs. I'm not into Schubert and Brahms and Puccini and so forth. Those are the things that shaped my voice, really. And that's not true for everybody, and that's okay. But that's what I would say first. That's what I would say first. And then I would say, sing as often as you can. Wherever you're asked to sing, or wherever you can say, you know, I want to go to your pastor, whatever. I want to sing, you know. And do that, because that gets you. People often say to me, how do you not be nervous? How do you not be nervous? Well, I've been doing it, you know, since I was a year old or 2 years old. Mom and Dad stood us on chairs behind the pulpit, you know. Yeah, you can start adding. There are many more now added to that. But, you know, so that we could be seen over the pulpit, and that's what we had to do in order to, you know, be seen by the audience. But that's so very important. And then I think just know what God has called you to, you know, and don't settle for less. I mean, less might be Broadway. Mm-hmm. Less might be Broadway. I know a lot of people throughout my life who thought I gave up something. First of all, I probably would have never made it to Broadway. But people, you know, used to introduce me that way. She's given up Broadway for the Lord. I didn't give up anything. I didn't give up anything, really. And I gained it all. And I think that is the key, you know, to be in the center of God's will for your life. And when your friends don't, you know, understand why you're singing classical music or heavier music, or you're really into your music, you know, that's okay. That's okay. And when high school, I thought, well, I want to be a cheerleader. And I was a cheerleader for about a half of a year when the music guy in our school and the drama guy said, are you going to be a cheerleader or are you going to be a singer? Because I was hoarse every weekend after screaming my head off. So know what God's called you to and do it. But do it to the best of your ability. The best of your ability. And practice that diction. Very important.
Let's close out our time. You're going to do a song, Hiding in Thee.
Oh, okay. All right. Boy, I forgot.
You forgot that?
Yeah, that's all right, though.
Okay.
It's a wonderful song and one of my very favorites. And let me just quickly say, arranged by Ron Huff, who did my very first orchestra album. And that kind of was the beginning of him in Nashville, and he went on to do so many wonderful things. And he kindly has arranged things on every one of my albums and CDs that I've made. And this was his idea for this arrangement. I said, I want to do this song. And he said, well, I have something in mind. And I love what he did. Oh, safe to the rock that is higher than I, my soul in its conflicts and sorrows would fly, so sinful, so weary. Thine would I be, thou blessed rock of ages. I'm hiding in thee, hiding in thee, hiding in thee, thou blessed rock of ages. I'm hiding in thee. In the calm of the noontide, in sorrow's lone hour,
In times when temptation casts o'er me its power, in the tempest of life, on that wide heaving sea, thou blessed rock of ages, I'm hiding in thee, hiding in thee, hiding in thee, thou blessed rock of ages. I'm hiding in thee, hiding in thee, hiding in thee, thou blessed rock of ages. I'm hiding in thee. It's a tough one for me.
Well, Bob, this was fun.
It was a very
We
fun
have been
day.
talking about doing this forever and ever, so I'm glad we finally got to do that. And I trust that you enjoyed this podcast today. I want to remind you that America's Keswick depends on friends like you to support the ministry with your gifts and with your prayers. We've got an exciting week of podcasts coming up next week. You can give your gift online, www.americaskeswick.org. Hit the little button that says Donate Now. Next Friday, we're going to interview Diane's brother, Buddy.
That's going to be fun.
We're going to get the other side of the
I'm
story.
really Buddy's sister.
That's right. So please join us. God bless you.